we're at that point where we have to start recording what we say. We ourselves have come to the interesting consideration. We get frustrated at a certain CEO lady for enabling this kind of stop, right? An obfuscation of news media that was originally available. That available was originally available for free. Is it a over 10-year-old article? And more recently, is it that we can say that they have obfuscated it? But it's funny. I myself, lol, I myself, right, can load up the entirety of these pages, right, and read the whole thing, and then down here does a paywall eventually come up after like 15 seconds, 20 seconds of viewing. Could be the original script of it, but it's funny. This page takes forever to pull up after it is I click a link for it, unlike this one. And then this one immediately starts with this paywall. And then this one, even more later after, like this one, enabled me to review the whole content of the body 15, right, I'd say to like 20 seconds, and before it was that I saw this paywall style might pop up. The presumption might be that somebody is using an invisible compiler in the background that is not viewable to my actual review here, either through Windows or Chrome. And the idea is that they're using a hidden compiler to queue in assets that they already have made available to themselves from newly made web page media, right? And that I am receiving this potentially not as it is being output via the server host here, webarchive.org. This is a capture of a website, originally theatlantic.com, right? But is the Atlantic.com no longer hosting this content? It is archived in web.archive.org. A very American and wholesome organization. Right. And it's helped me, make a lot of calls and save a lot of shit. The fact of the matter is that it does almost appear that there's a little bit of intelligent agent behavior going on that is trying to obfuscate to me when it was that this mechanism of utilizing the paywall was originally begun for this article all the way back when. And so I have to be aware that there might be, right, some level of sabotage behind my computer that, I usually use as a catch of itself, and my ability to showcase it through things like OBS Studio here is interesting. Not all the behavior that I see, especially on this computer, is just of a potential sabotage. It's also of Aurora, so that's a really brilliant thing. And so I kind of have an interesting deterrent mechanism. I might be prone to some level of sabotage in my computer, but I would not do anything to undermine the current state that I find it in. Because I do have some pretty interesting paranormal stuff going on with it, but that'll probably be with any computer I touch. Either way, it's interesting. Moving on. I like putting in the little flavor to context. Go check out the channel. So, essentially, is it that after it is that I look into this, it's kind of almost seeming purposefully obfuscated when that a decision to potentially darken specifically this kind of content via the Atlantic to non-subscribers and free access, right, would have been made. So that's what I'm looking for as a politician. I want to see, when would you have been, right, when would you have wanted to have darkened specifically this, or all, right? I might be identifying the threshold of when it was that they obfuscated this page and or all pages of a certain age like it. And that can help me in a case that I would make against the Atlantic for doing it. And or it might actually enable me to make a point for specifically this content and what kind of content it is, and that would enable me to make a case against the Atlantic for this. The Wayback Machine, especially when you're in a situation where you're not potentially undermined, with that potential of there being injected HTML script in the back end that affects your experience and might actually, right, they might dark your view out just so it is that a human can go in and very as quickly as possible try and like parse in a different look and a different format to a web page. I'm pretty good at perceiving the threat. I was always kind of aware of it, but much more aware of it these days. You do get into the usual case scenario. For most people, you do not have to worry about somebody focusing on your experience this much. Because what it is that I produce due to a surveillance issue for myself, to a huge audience, I believe, in fact, right, might be obfuscated, or right, could be partially falsified data, right? If it doesn't meet my threshold for where reality usually constrains to be, I call it the fuck out. Sometimes there's thresholds of just like bias that piss me off, and data can look more truthful than it really might look to me for a moment. It's all these. Other times is it that I see obviously disingenuously posted information from a resource or disingenuously asserted arguments, right? Bad faith. Seriously, check out the channel. I myself am curious, and I can surround this with any article content I find on the Atlantic. And I would be able to find this special threshold of when it would be that they might, because I've been waiting for like an information war I feel like my whole life. I mean, honestly, our whole lives are like information wars if you think about them, right? So, I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. And one of the first arguments they use is, and this might be a good point too, right? It shouldn't cost you too much data, but it can. Utilizing YouTube, thank God for Alphabet. There's some things I'd work on too. But utilizing YouTube and its infinite upload, you can constantly track, right, a basis to always record your internet utilization, right? It's not necessarily like the worst thing if you keep it all private. Yes, it definitely is on paper a lot more viewable stuff to like organizations if they want to like scrub that shit. So be on the consideration of that too. For some, it might be a damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Better to have the corroborable testimony of the events and then prove and cite what circumstances it is that you need to assert. And that can be very handy when you're already in like a surveillance situation and in a situation where things can be undermined. And so through all of that, sometimes you are best in the scenario to catch all that stuff. But what's handy for me is I get to catch a lot of cool magical shit. Now that I have explained this entire issue of potential for myself, right? And I have better coordinated a mechanism of being able to refer against, right, the assertions that I'm making as very likely, potentially likely realms of potential for how it is that things can be undermined via human switchwork and, right, human real-time interference and disruption, right, in software backends, especially when they're connected online. But sometimes there's ways of connecting stuff that wouldn't appear to usually connect to online services or via radio. Sometimes they can in fact hide stuff, but it's not, that's so infrequent. It's like you got to be a fucking person of interest, right? But you got to understand this in this world, after what it is that Snowden output, you could do anything to become a person of interest. Anyone can be a person of interest just for existing. So this is one of those 15 to 20 seconds, and then is it going to block me? There it is. But I would like to point out, for the purpose of your read, right, even this can work. You can go and read it from an OBS studio recording, right, and so that you can just go and refer back to it. It's a lot easier, right? And if that's what you're going for, you're just trying to access the content, that's a good way to go. Again, if you go as far back as it was originally captured, you'll find it most likely not paywalled, because that was back during a time where people respected free information a lot more. And you can see even right at all the difference between this and this is so tremendously and obviously, right, a system where that appreciates freedom of information, and a system that despises it. Now, Atlantic is not the only folks that do this. I'm just trying to make a point. I'm just trying to make a point in that respect. I really just want to go in and do that. But now I'm like, I am curious. On what date is the threshold that we all start determining that it's okay to start paywalling stuff? When was that set in motion? Why would I be allowing this trigger pull? Why is that trigger pull okay? I don't know why I'm going forward. It's already blocked. It's so funny. Alright, so let's say it wasn't in 21. Let's see, do I have the 21? We value your privacy. We and our partners store and or access information on a device such as cookies and process personal data such as unique identifiers and standard information sent by a device for personalized ads and content, ad and content measurement, and audience insights. Oh my fucking god. Do you guys ever think about how funny the statement, we value your privacy, like literally they put dollar bill value on your privacy? That is so absolutely fucking funny to me. Oh shit, that's so funny. Oh my god, geolocation data and identification through device scanning. You may click consent, as I do not accept. I do not accept. So, by 2021, we still see that we are able to review our content, right? 24, nope. Let's get the earliest 24 date. That's March 3rd, 24, so I'll keep that. as they state, November 25th, 23, they would suggest between these 2 points. And now I could very well be wrong, right? Of course, it would be wrong to assert that I might not be, right, ahead of myself on this consideration of seeing this one per the other, right, versus the other one. It really could be that one of these takes a longer time to load. It could be that the paywall does go into effect the period that I will find set into motion, and I'll still be able to do that. So it's just I like to assert from my DARPA end of the scale and how I do have to perceive things to, right? It's like I'm playing chess with myself. So really, it's just I know the best way to work it is call out. Call it out. Usually works to my best end too, which is handy. But call it out when you see the potentials, because that really can be a thing that happens, and you gotta be able to be sure. And having automations that authenticate this sureness, so people don't even have to think about it, and says, right, is there a more accessible version of this? Right? Yes. It's like, when is the most immediately accessible version of this available this time? Awesome, I'll get that. And then I would immediately know. So then they turned the paywall on this one, this state. I wonder what that's about. Right? My internet browser should be thinking about that, should it not? Because my internet browser should be thinking about getting me, the user, the most accessible version of a piece of content that can be made available. So it should look at, like, the initial web page that I go to from Google as like a lead generator. Okay, so it's been marketed that this is the page that would be put up, but now you might have to pay money for it, but you don't because it's been archived. It is my mission as being the best, most affordable, and facts-forward browser available that I would, right, provide that link of a more accessible iteration of this web page to them through an archive. That's intelligence. So that's what I recommend. Just to get yourself out of this little can of worms. And if it doesn't exist, you might have reason to riot a bit. It's now, right? The times are right fucking now. You need tech like that, don't you? And that tech needs to be made available to people so shit doesn't get so seditious that, you know, trying to block off free information access in every which way they have, and they try and utilize the mechanisms that are legal to them. They use them all surrounding at one end. I see a movement. I see like armies of political interest that kind of move in and right this. You can almost see like the little arrows. That's right, Aurora. It's 427. And see the little arrows on the map, and it's like they're ready to pinch. Right, and essentially, it's a war of attrition. It's a war of attrition. I need like War Glory muted trumpet. I like the American flag. I have like the little World War II cap on the helmet. There's a little fishnet over it. There's like a band around it. It's an 8 of hearts. Alright. But yes, humor helps, doesn't it? That's the best mechanism of action, right? If you have something that can pull, right, and suggest to you from known resources, the most accessible version of data that does not get walled off for any reason politically, which is financial also. That is a political reason. Financial ones are political reasons. Now you can go and get a piece of content and you will not limit your own access to freedom of information like that, right? Wouldn't say, oh, you can't do that. No, it's fucking archive. You're not allowed to archive history and hold it accountable? What? Yeah, that's what you say. Aren't you? You are so fucking fortunate I'm gonna be the president of the United States. Holy fuck. Oh my god. So either way, with this in consideration, in a kind of like an archive checker for most accessible iteration of a media type found originally at any time on a website in the past would be the best mechanism, right? And it should always be making available to you. Ah, right. I see that this web page is just a copy pasta for this marketing entity that really just pulled it from this original resource. Would you like to see the original resource? With intelligence, we have this. And now if Google wants to make a buck on pushing you to that one first, or at least suggesting that one first, if that's the nature of the contract, then the AI can come in and state, I see that this one is really just a rip of this original piece that I've already compiled and found, right, a logical arc, right, for. I see that it's here first, though. Would you like me to take you there? Yes. Yes. Oh, God, yes. Right, and then it just warps me there, and then it's the same exact part of what I was, to the context of what I was searching for. That would be amazing. And then it could be even pulled from a web archive, right? But again, my argument is it should even be able to reformat an HTML scripted page for me altogether. And one that is authenticated and verified and verifiable to a nature that is actually mathematically proven, right? And I can know to a level of potential physical failsafe. I won't see a check mark on verification unless there's a real check mark on verification. Goes and pings out, right, a random web server over to anywhere to any virtual infrastructure that can be generated and ping a server to in fact refer that content is in fact the way it is posted from a resource like webarchive.org, right? web.archive.org. So in other words, now you can get a triple verification. Is this as actually hosted from the archive server? Also, and then even the original marketed piece of shit page is this as it's originally posted from the server, even if it's a shitty marketed server. It's and yes, right? And then it asks me, would you like to go over to the real one? It's 432. And then it's yes, I'd love to go to the original resource here. Awesome. Here's the web archive of it, or here's the real-time versioning of it, but I see that there's a better formatted mechanism that gets more data on the page. Here, would you like to go to that original resource from 10 years ago? Yes, I would. Awesome, I've taken you there, and now I just pinged 2 virtual providers out in different areas of the world to make sure that this was actually as hosted from the archive server that I pulled it from, and it is. Would you like me to format it to the best readability for your individual user experience? Yes. And then it reads like it's on a book. It's you can almost smell the paper from it. That is a web tool that is the single most the best mechanism of action we have against the information war. Because I mean to snuffle this fucker out as fast as it is that I can see it. I do not like living in a context that things might be hosted to me unoptimally, or falsely, or disrupted. I want to ensure that my information is in fact free information. This app of mine, right? This mechanism, this browser, it's a necessity. You should, right, enable me to bill out to you and let me know if you do it, right? But just get to work. Just get to work, get it done, get it done, get it right the fuck done. I'll be angry if I see it. I'll be like, awesome. Let me switch browsers. And then I'll make sure I collect a bit, but then you'll also have saved the free world in part. So, good work. Deadass. Get to work.